in movies, you want to take down the speed as much as you can, so you can repeat it and do it safely. It's not about the real speed; it's about how it looks for the frame, for the camera. So that's the different thing here. You want to make it just predictable as possible and reliable as possible, and then you can do the takes over and over again, how they cut it together, and where to put the cameras and such. So mainly in movies, things are way slower than it looks.
Well, thanks for joining us, Samuel. It's great that you're able to talk to us and explain a little bit about your career and what you've done in the past and hope to do in the future. So if you want to start off and just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, Samuel Hübinette. Currently, I'm a professional driver. I've been a professional driver for basically 32 years, which means you're paid to drive vehicles, but stunt driving is my main focus nowadays. Background, I come from a small little town in northern Sweden. I grew up Arctic Circle, and there wasn't a whole lot of other things to do than basically either if you were into hunting or fishing, which I wasn't. I was into driving, so there was a lot of great opportunities growing up in that little town. Driving snowmobiles in the winter, and as I got older, from motocross, I grew up dirt bike riding, and then moved to cars, and a lot of gravel roads, frozen lakes in the winter, sliding around. Didn't call it drifting back then; it was just sliding cars, and throwing 360s back then, just because it was fun, doing different challenging things. So that led me to actually get a paid job for Volvo. 1992, I became a test driver, working with the future cars. So they were like prototypes, and Volvo was using a very secluded airport up there. It was a military airport they were renting. It had 4 runways connected together. So we made loops in there and drove at that time, developing S40 and 850 and then S60, S80 that came along after that. But basically working with cars, it wasn't going to come out till 6 years later. So it was a very big day when I got into that job. And Volvo had a commercial going on up there, so I was very fortunate to be at the right place at the right time, and I got to do my first commercial and do some stunt driving for that commercial. With a helicopter flying next to me. So I mean, a lot of wonderful things, dream come true, that from thinking that this was nothing that could happen me growing up so far away from everything. But I was just fortunate that Volvo decided to test cars outside of town, and I managed to get in there. It's a lot of long stories how I got into these different tasks, but basically just to make it short, I heard about Volvo being there from a guy, and I called Volvo Sweden, 1-800 Volvo Sweden, and said, "Hey, can I talk to the person in charge of testing in Jokkmokk?" She said, "Yeah, I'll forward you right now." She did. He answered, and I said, "Hey, I'm Samuel. I would like to work for you. I live in Jokkmokk. Do you need any extra drivers, local drivers?" Like, well, matter of fact, maybe we do. And I remember his name very clear. His name was Olle Gunnarsson. And he asked me my background. I said, yeah, my dad has a trucking company, so I drive semi-trucks for him, and I have a mechanical background, and I just love driving. He's like, well, those are good criteria. You know where the things are in the car, and that's a good base, and I'll let you know in a couple of weeks. And he called me back, and then I got hired. So with that said, you just have to go for it, make phone calls, show up, show your face, show how hungry you are, and that has really helped me to get where I am today. But long story short, I don't know how short I should do this, but I was with Volvo for 9 years, and then I decided to pursue Hollywood and any type of paid driving in the United States. So I quit my full-time job for Volvo after being working at their main facility in Gothenburg several years, because I got a full-time job after a few years being a part-time winter driver for Volvo. And I quit everything and sold all things I had and said goodbye to friends and family. And I flew over here with a one-way ticket and started hustling around here. That was not easy. As I came here, first of all, I did get a job for as a driving instructor for skip bobber racing school, and worked on parking lots throughout the states, doing demonstrations and sitting in the front seat with potential buyers or sales and dealer training. And September 11 happened just 2 months after I moved here, and the whole country went into limp mode pretty much. Skip bobber went bankrupt, and I was out of job. And but I decided in January that winter, I was sitting here at the pier in Newport Beach, thinking, man, it's 75 Fahrenheit. Surfers are cruising by here. Beautiful day in Sweden. I knew it was dark and just, miserable. And I was thinking, you know what? I am still way more happy here, poor, than going back and into that dark, long winter climate that I came from. And I was like, you know what? I'd rather stay here and just whatever it takes. And I did. A few years later, D1 brought over drifting to United States. This was 2003. And I heard about it through the connections, working as a ride and drive instructor for different programs. And they then came up that we're going to have a driver search to find local American drivers to drift against the top D1 drivers at the House of Drift or Irwindale Speedway. And I didn't have a car or anything, but so me and Rich Rutherford and Nick Kunewalder, we rented a vehicle. Actually, we rented 2 vehicles. My vehicle did not qualify for the actual day, but I got to tag along with them in a Nissan 350Z that we rented at Hertz in Beverly Hills. We put some other tires on it and went to see what this drifting was about. And it was 52 guys out there. And unfortunately, Nick was out there first, trying to qualify. As soon as he tapped the foot on the brake, the skid control kicked in and took away his drift. ABS kicked in. So he got disqualified. Then we snapped the fuse and figured out how to work around that fuse without going into a limp mode again. And me and Rich went out, and we were part of the 8 that qualified out of 52. And the Tsuchiya told me I was number 1 out of those 52. So I felt very honored. And now I was qualified, but I didn't have a team. But got into a team that wanted me to drive for them, because now it was 52 guys and only 8 qualified. So it's a lot of cars now, different options. But anyway, I was in a Nissan 240. And on the day we were going to compete now against the D1 guys, the car blew up in the morning. So I didn't even make it to qualification that day. And I thought my whole life was done. I was so bummed, because I was like, this is my breakthrough. And it didn't happen. But a few months later, me and Rich, I told Rich, to prove ourselves, we got to get some good cars to make some good videos. So we saved up enough money at the time. So we went and bought an old used M3 E46, went and did a video. And this video showing 2 nice cars drifting side by sides. My vision was that that's going to give us respect, so we can show that we have skills, because at that time had been mainly older cars, drifting. So show 2 newer cars connected. I could see this going to be building up or get some more credit to hopefully get into a better team for upcoming events. And it worked out. We got picked up for some other team. And the year after, D1 came over 2004 to compete fully for points, part of their whole championship. So they were not just going to, goof around and have fun and show. Now it was, a full-blown competition, part of their whole series. And I was in the Jasper Performance Supra, which was a great car that Reese Millen built, original, sold. And I managed to compete that day and make it to top 10. And then only non-Japanese that day, I made it to top 10 out of the American all drivers. So that made me to get attention from Chrysler Dodge that was out there, Mopar. So BJ Burtwell was out there scouting this new event for Mopar Dodge in Detroit, and he saw me making all the way up to the top, and they called me the day after and said, hey, we want to get you to drive for us. Are you interested? And it was a big day for me, huge. And that's how I started then driving for Mopar in a Viper for the Formula Drift series.
Oh, that's awesome. So basically you were explaining that you grew up in Sweden and you just drove cars for fun with your friends as a teenager. Like, were you competing in any like go-karting or anything? Like, how did you learn from such an early age to drive well?
I learned from driving mainly just recklessly on the gravel roads and asphalt roads and in all over, in this little town where I grew up. I did take my rallycross license when I was 16, but my dad was too busy running his trucking company, so he wasn't really supporting me to support that, so he didn't buy a car for me. So I got my license and did well that day, but that never happened. So it was dirt bike riding, snowmobiles, and then when I got my license, driver's license, then I just drove up there. It was a lot of freedom. Nothing I can recommend to do, but that's how we rolled up there. This was the middle of nowhere in northern Sweden, so a lot of open roads. Mostly of the fare will be running into reindeer or moose, big moose that could kill you. Not many people up there, so it's pretty good place to learn with, like I said, frozen lakes with ice tracks outside town and a lot of gravel roads all over. That's where majority of a lot of top rally drivers, come from Finland, and Solberg, which is all from northern Scandinavian countries where you have gravel roads for hours. So you can just slide every corner for forever.
And did you like teach yourself? Did you have like a mentor back in those days, like early on, or was it just competing with your friends?
I was just going as fast as you could and go sideways. It was fun sliding. I always liked sliding, and motorcycle was all about doing wheelies. It was just an interest. I mean, back then there was no videos, there was no YouTube. We had no inspiration from anyone else, and just coming up with something to do, and that was fun.
And what kind of cars were you driving back then?
My car that I had when I was 18 was a Opel Manta, which is it's a two-door coupe. You can look it up on Google if you put Opel Manta GTS, I think it was called. And it's very similar to a Nissan 240. It's a 4-cylinder engine, rear-wheel drive, and it also came with limit slip differential. You could have an upgrade with the Recaro seats and 5-speed. And the cool thing also that car, it had synchronized reverse, so you could come and do 15 miles and pop in reverse and do a reverse like forward, but pop in reverse, just do burnout and do different tricks with that. So it was a great car to learn in.
Cool. And then once you worked for Volvo, were they more like, did they have any instructors, or were they more strict, or were you kind of allowed to do what you wanted?
No. So when you're working as a test driver, it's very strict, it's very controlled, and it's there's a lot of different tests you do with different type of cars and such. So some of the tests are about high speed, but nothing is just going nuts. It's a control. It's about repeating the same thing over and over again. So it gets pretty repetitive and quite boring after a few years. But the first few years, it was heaven for me. I got to drive 6 hours a day, and I worked overtime usually in the weekend. So 6 days, average 6-8 hours a day behind the steering wheel. It adds up. And you also do a lot of high-speed testing. So you're on this oval track, kind of like a NASCAR track, and you do high-speed testing. So at 140 miles per hour in the bank, there's no side force. So you can actually release the steering wheel. That's how much the corner is banked. So it's very convenient to drive fast. But if you did 150 miles, then you start to have to fight a little bit. And at that time, we started to develop the S80 and also 850R that at that time had 250 horsepower and such. Start building up. So they were doing around 150, 160 miles. So it made it more interesting that you did all the kind of high speed testing, and you got so much seat time and got very comfortable. But you did some things. You had to avoid each other sometimes, and you just got comfortable being that speed day after day. So it was a very good training spot for me to get seat time.
Yeah, so it sounds like that's a good job to like learn how to drive. How did you get to America after that? I guess before September 11th, it wasn't as strict with like coming over. Like, did you have to show, like, did you get a special visa to come over here?
I actually won the green card lottery.
Oh.
So I won the green card lottery. So you win the opportunity to get a green card. You just don't just win, but it's a big task to go through paperwork and such. But I won the application through the green card lottery, and I had a very good friend here, Chris Hansen, that helped me fill out all the paperwork, which was stack after stack, and a lot of different tests has to be done over there. From everything from health tests to HIV tests to scan my lungs. I mean, they went through everything. It was so expensive. It was only like 2 doctors in Sweden was a credit for this. You had to travel to do it, but I was determined to come over here, and so that was a God's blessing, and that finally came through. And I was so happy that day when I got that green card. I was crying of happiness, and I was just excited to try something new and come to California and live in the sun.
Cool. And did you have a wife back then, or how did you meet your wife? Was that later in America, or did you go back to Sweden? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, no. So I came here as a single man, and I knew Stina, my wife, before, because her brother Magnus is an old friend of mine. So I knew her for years, but she had a guy over there at the time. So I just came on my own. But then a few years later, they separated. So then I heard about that from her brother, and so we started talking again. And then she came over, and we started dating, long distance dating for a while, and then finally she came over to attend college, and then we got to be dating here as normal, and we got married in 2006. And now we have 3 wonderful children, and Stina is now also a very established and talented stunt driver, and actually become more and more busy as we go. So it's really cool to see.
That's nice. So did you convince her to go into it, or has she always been interested in stunt driving?
So in the beginning, when she came, it was really very much focused on my drift career. Because we had for a couple of years our own team also, so she was part of the whole organization, everything with booking travel and all kinds of bookkeeping and everything. And but previous years to that, when I was doing a lot of instruction jobs, she came out to a lot of events, and she got to do all kinds of racing schools and driving programs when she was with me. So Tanner, Fowles, and all my friends, they were gladly letting her come and be instructed by them, because she's a pretty girl. So they were very easy to convince to give her a lot of free instruction. And so we saw that she had natural skills, and she got a lot of just awesome driving schools over several years. But then busy with running our own drift program, and then after that. We put her into. Then we decided, okay, let's put. We want to pursue and get you into some stunt driving, but first I had to build up some credibility for her. So at the time, I was sponsored by Mopar and BF Goodrich, and they all loved Stina. So I just it was a very convenient thing, because I just called Kevin Miller at Mopar and said, hey, Stina wants to go racing. I want to put her into racing now, do time attacks. I need a car. He's like, okay, let's work on it. And then he sent her a a Dodge Neon with this, a stage 3 turbo. It wasn't set up well. It was basically stock, but we got the car sent here. I called BFG. They all supported her in that. And this was back then when the financial situation with all those companies was very, very good. So there was no issues with that. So they just, okay, how many tires do you need? Send me 12 to start. Okay, what's the address? It was awesome. We had this awesome relationship with it. So yeah, we got her sponsored, and she got out there and she did really well. And we built up a lot of energy around her, and she finished second in one of the red line time attack events at California Speedway, which also includes half of the oval, which is very intimidating. And she got second, which was very respectful. And the car was actually basically just a stage 3 Neon, powerful but not very great cornering. But so she proved herself, that she could drive, and that credit helped me convince the director to say, hey, she's ready now. This is what she did. Check out this material we have. And he got into a commercial, and then she started to get more and more reputation. But then we had our most blessing in our life. We had our first child, and then her priority changed. So then became a full-time mother. So she put her job on hold for several years because we had 3 children. And after they got a little older and things started to, run smoother and such, then we started to, she started to want to go into work more, and then we started to, try to promote her. And that's also when we got an M3 E92 to use for different type of activities, such as training her, myself, have some fun. And we took it to a parking lot at Irwindale Speedway. And this was back when Facebook was pretty good tool to get videos. So I just tried to iPhone video, whatever I was shooting with back then, and put it on Facebook when she did figure eights and slide up to her camera and took off. And it was just kind of very organic. And that video, I think, I forgot the numbers, but I think it was like back then, it was 10 million views. But also a lot of people were criticizing it, which it shouldn't bother you. But there was so many just nasty comments, like, oh, she's too far away from the kitchen. Oh, why is she driving that blonde, blah, blah, blah. All this brutal stuff about my wife. And it pissed me off. And I was like, this shouldn't bother me, because who cares about these people? But it fired up some more things in me. And I was like, you know what? All right, let's go. So I was like, I'm going to get a Lamborghini, and I'm going to make a sick video of a Lamborghini drifting with my wife. And that's a car these kids hasn't even been sitting in, or most of them haven't even seen it in real life. It's going to shut them up. That's kind of fired me up. I know that you shouldn't bother with these things, but that created my little, hunger and anger and revenge. Okay, I'm going to show them. And that's how it started. So I was like, you know what? This is also going to get even more respect to get into commercials. If you can drift a supercar, they're not easy to drift at all. They're a handful. That's going to help. So that's how that started. So I went to Lamborghini Newport Beach, told him my idea. Pietro over there, he's like, love it. First time someone, this is before now. This is like before you saw people drifting Lamborghinis. And he's like, okay, I'm going to put a handbrake in it, and we're going to do some cool stuff. All right, we'll help you. So they helped us get the car for some type of discount. Nothing spectacular that way, but then I went to Nido Tires. At that time, they had 10 million followers on Facebook. So I'm like, okay, that sounds good. They have a lot of already marketing power there. And went and met up with them, told them my idea. They loved it, and said, we'll support you with tires. We don't really have the right sizes, but we'll figure out. And we did, and so that was super great of them. And then we went and did that video with me and Stina on Newport Beach parking lot, and that video really took a lot of traction at that time. I forgot the numbers, but 5 million or whatever, also 10 the first week. And years, so it was huge. And they also gave her some boost to get to drive for different other manufacturers as a stunt driver. So it was fun, and gave us an excuse to buy a supercar.
No, yeah, it sounds like you've been able to utilize like video throughout your whole career, starting in drifting, and like you said, you got some cars and you wanted to film it so that you could show other people, like to get that, you know, exposure. And then later on, you did it with your wife with the Lamborghini. So these companies see like the benefit that videos like that can have. So if you're able to come to them with a good idea and like be able to say this is kind of what we're trying to achieve, then I think they'll be on board. But it's also probably about like the relationships you have with these brands and your background as like a drifting champion. Maybe we can talk a little bit about your career in Formula Drift.
Ryan and Jim now created Formula Drift back then. So the car was very strong forward. It was not easy to drift at that time, but everybody was struggling. So I managed to win the championship 2004, so the inaugural champion. And then Reese with a Pontiac GT took the championship 2005. And I brought back the championship again 2006. And then 2007, I was in a Charger because Dodge wanted to promote a car that they actually could sell to the clientele. So we put us in a Charger, and that was a big, heavy car, so I couldn't be competitor. But, you know, you do what the sponsor wants. You just kept a smile and blame yourself every time you lost, and never blame them or the tires. And we finished fifth, I think, the year, and Tanner grabbed the championship back then in a Nissan 350Z. And then we continued, and then I got back to the Viper 2008-9, and that's when 2009 Chrysler Corporation went bankrupt, so it was a rough year. And Sean Carlson, at that time, that owned the team I drove for that at that time, New Forms, he passed away. So it was a rough year. 2009 was definitely a rough year. So we were trying to get pregnant, all kinds of stuff, and it was just a lot of stress. But anyway, then 2010-11, I ran my own program and got sponsored directly from Dodge, not Mopar, similar, but just another entity in the Chrysler Corporation. In a Challenger, again, too big car, but that's the car they had. And we did okay, but nothing spectacular. I don't even remember what I finished, but we did all about, you know, implementing good marketing and a lot of activities and ride-alongs. I built the Charger, the Dodge four-door Charger as a drift taxi, and gave ride-alongs at the events, and, you know, created a lot of good vibes and a lot of smiles. So they were happy with the program. But then we were all kind of tired of the, how do you say it, subjectiveness.
Subjective, yeah.
All the sport being subjective. So quit that, and rallycross was taking off at that time, global rallycross. So I went and did rallycross after that, and finished third in the championship. Yeah, third in the championship. 10, number one, Brian Deegan second. I was third in the championship. I was in a long story, but not so very competitive car. But a Saab 9.3, sponsored by Ineos. But we did what we could, but after that, I didn't get into a car that I was going to be able to win. So I decided I couldn't handle, my ego couldn't deal with being a non-competitive car. So I quit racing and just started to focus on stunt driving. And we bought a house and a lot of family focus at that time. Had 2 children, third coming very soon at that time. So anyway, so that's kind of where my racing career actually stopped. And since then, I've been doing stunt driving for movies and commercials.
Cool. So was the first movie like the Fast and the Furious? Was that the Tokyo Drift one? Was that your first like stunt driving experience, or was there more before that?
No, there was the Tokyo Drift, because they needed they were asking for actual drift drivers for that movie to get the real deal. So Reese was the main driver, Tanner myself and Rich Rutherford ran quite a lot there, and my main character that I double was Han, so I was in a Valeside Mazda RX-7, which was a handful, but we got the stuff done, and we got to double Han and DK in some scenes, and also in the Mitsubishi there, also some scenes I was driving on the left side in a small steering wheel as he was pretending driving on the right side. A night job, 5 days a week. It was brutal. I was nervous, a lot of pressure. It wasn't really enjoyable for me because the car was super hard to drift. Rotor engine, no torque, and then they had some massive, I think 345. I think it was like 345 in the rear. I mean, the car just didn't want to slide. It was insane. Till we finally started to shave down, take away portion inside of the contact patch on me. It took away, so I could actually start to lose some grip. But it took me, a week or two till they, I was afraid to ask to. I was new. I was just kind of, okay, I'll figure it out. I don't want to cause any issues here. So it was so much pressure and such. But that was my first movie.
Yeah. So, I guess through experience now, when you go on a set, you can tell them exactly how to spec the car, what you need in terms of the tires and handbrake and things like that. Is there a list that you kind of go through and say, this is what I need in order to do my job?
Yeah, so absolutely. I have no fear of speaking out nowadays, but that doesn't mean that thing's going to be done anyway, unfortunately. So me and Tanner, for example, last summer we did Old Guard 2 movie with Charlize Theron in Italy, and we told them what we wanted before, but things were not done anyway when we got there. But we got to test them, and they did a good job fixing the things that we asked. But there wasn't, things are missing in the whole link. When you tell one person, they forget to tell the other person, and you show up and cars are not that great many times, but that worked out well there. But yeah, so it's rarely the cars are really great. I can say Need for Speed, doubling Aaron Paul, that Mustang was actually really good. It felt good. It was good setup because Tanner had driven before me in several scenes, so he had been fighting through the kinks. So I got the car very well dialed when I got it. So that was it was so nice to have actually car just worked well. And the Mustangs are great drift car sets, they are. And when some extra tweak, it makes them even better. So yeah, it was good.
So yeah, I think you've expressed that having a good car is important for racing and doing movies. And is there a perfect dream car that you would like to have for drifting, and how would you spec it out?
If I would pick a good drift car, I would just go pick any of the top cars in Formula Drift, or the European, top series. They're all just lots of steering angle. In that case, you would just have to take away traction in the rear, because they're designed to create a lot of grip and speed. In movies, you want to take down the speed as much as you can, so you can repeat it and do it safely. It's not about the real speed; it's about how it looks for the frame, for the camera. So that's the different thing here. You want to make it just predictable as possible and reliable as possible, and then you can do the takes over and over again, and you can left foot brake and keep it in control, because it's not about the speed. They can always get the energy come out with how they cut it together, and where they put the cameras and such. So mainly in movies, things are way slower than it looks.
everything seems out of control, but it's very controlled, and if they have the right like stunt coordinator and everyone knows what they're doing, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is most of the time you have a camera car has to keep up with you, so they're usually very heavy most of the time with a big arm, and it's an arm car, so their weight distribution is high center of gravity. They can't take the corners fast, so and if you're not in frame, it's not gonna be a movie. So you have to work with what you have around you, and it's all about for what looks best in the picture. So that's a whole other spectrum there, and that's where experience comes, and where a lot of if it's a pure race car driver comes in and want to do work for film, they generally always just drive way too fast and just forget it's for a lens. It's for a lens. It's not for your glory.
So it's kind of like a dance, you kind of keep up. They got to keep up with you, and you got to like slow down so that they can catch up and back and forth. Yeah. So is there, like you mentioned, you did Fast and the Furious and Need for Speed, and like is there other kind of movies that you've worked on that you can kind of list out?
Yeah. So I did Fast and Furious 3, 4, 5, and 9. I was part of not heavily in all of them, but did some scenes here and there, because my main focus is to do car commercials, so I can be here locally home more, having 3 kids and a wife. But what else? Ford versus Ferrari, that one I worked on quite a lot of weeks, maybe a month or so. I'm not remember exactly, but then last year I was on a movie called Ferrari with Michael Mann directing in Italy, where I'm playing a character called Mike Hawthorne, the first British Formula One champion that drove for Enzo Ferrari in the 50s. So I'm playing him in the movie. So that was quite fun. I had to do some acting, which I don't like, but they used me as a driver. So then you have to do the talking to. So I had to speak, which was nerve-wracking for me, but it was fun also to push your comfort zone. And then the Olga 2, which comes out any minute, I think this summer on Netflix. There are other movies that I forget, but it's all there on IMDb.
Like you mentioned, the car commercials. What kind of car commercials have you driven on, and like maybe the brands that you could list out that you remember?
Basically, pretty much any car manufacturer on TV in the United States. I've been driving for. We don't work directly for the actual manufacturer. We work directly for producers and directors that requesting their drivers. So it's. I mean, sometimes I don't even know what brand I'm working for. If a producer texting, "Are you available? Are you available June 27th in LA?" And I just say yes, and then they email you the day before, call sheet, and then you can see what, and you don't even ask sometimes because it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. Just go there and do the job. But sometimes you ask if you want to know, but sometimes they're so busy, so you don't even want to bother. You're like, yes, I'm ready. Okay, see you then, and that's it. And then you move on. But yeah, I mean, let's see now. Yesterday, it was 2 days ago, I worked for Toyota. It's been Dodge, Honda, Acura, a lot of Acura. I was at Chevy in Texas. I was in a Dodge shoot in Texas 3 weeks ago. I was Acura up in Portland. So it's kind of varies the whole time. Yeah, any brand that Kia, Hyundai, all those brands you see on TV a lot, we all do them. Nissan, such.
Yeah, it varies between jobs, like in terms of what they want you to do. Is it mostly just driving, or sometimes they want you to do like stunt moves, like 360s or whatever, spinning and all that?
It's everything from showing up and driving a pickup truck with a horse trailer that they want you to drive around on some gravel road and maybe in some farm and backing in somewhere, or a boat, or a Dodge commercial where they want you to drift through downtown LA and throw a 360 on the on the bridge and come back sideways together with another car, zigzagging, or just smoky tires, or just basically what we call running footage, just collecting footage of a car driving different quarter angle here. Just work around the car, slow, go away, take corners, use the blinkers, stay between the lanes, be just legal, and collect footage for the dealers to use for their local commercials. So it's a big variety, from trucks to nowadays electric vehicles, to horse trailers, like I said. Anything. Yeah. So you have to be ready for everything.
Yeah, so like you said, you don't even really know what you're showing up to. How do the director communicate with you to get what they need? Are you on a radio the whole time? They say drive here, drive there, and then if there's any more complex stunts, do they use Hot Wheels cars to describe? How do you communicate how to do a stunt?
Yeah, so those are great questions. So if it's basically, let's say it's just one car, one driver there, then there's no Hot Wheels cars involved, but the director sits in the camera car, that the arm car that has an arm around them, and he sits in there and directing the arm car driver and the boom operator and the DP that operates the actual camera. And the arm car driver has a walkie-talkie, and he talks to us as drivers, and he gives us the cue what he wants, if it's a blow by or make a left corner or come through, and then basically just have a quick chat. Okay, you're going to come from left. If let's say you're in downtown LA, you're going to come from that side, we're going to come from that side, and we're going to turn left, you're going to turn right, and then accelerate away, and we try to meet right here. Okay, so you line up for that, you do one take, and then they say, well, we want you to come later, or maybe they say we're going to adjust and come a little later, so we have the camera a little over here instead, and then you do it again, and boom, okay, got that, and then you keep moving on. And again, you never get to test the car before you show up, and you have no idea. So just trying to get comfortable in the car really quick, look around if you need to, and generally, what you want to do is turn off traction control, find maybe sport mode, so it's shifting a little quicker, so the car just is more alert, and maybe has manual gear shift, so you can actually shift manual, and you can stay in second gear and keep the RPM up, so you're more precise and can move the car around quickly as you want to go. So stuff like that, and then you just get it done.
Yeah, and it's there time frames. Do they have 10-hour days or 12-hour days? And if it goes over a certain amount, it's overtime. Do you kind of get in and get out quick, or are you kind of hurry up and waiting around the whole day, waiting for other people?
Yeah, so it varies. Generally, car commercials are usually 12-hour days. So 6 to 6 or into sunset. It could be 14-hour days too, depending. But and also going back to Hot Wheels cars, if it's a multi-car commercial or movies, then you definitely a lot of times set up a table, and you can even skis out an intersection or a road, and you put Hot Wheels cars, and you talk through what the plan is, so everybody knows what to do when there are multiple cars. And then if you have a shoot like that, then you have a stunt coordinator, a designated driver that will be the stunt coordinator, and he's in charge of the drivers. So he's the guy to go to talk to if you have questions, and he's the source between the director or DP or assistant director. So he's in charge of that group. But when it's just one or two cars, a lot of times, then we're just we don't have a designated coordinator. One of us might be the more of the lead driver, but that's how it is with that. Movies can be long days. A lot of times long days, 12, 14, 16-hour days, depending on how much you have to do. And then sometimes you're sitting around waiting, also a lot. Maybe your character doesn't drive that day. They don't plan it ahead always. They don't know sometimes what the director changes his mind. So suddenly you sit there and do nothing for a day or two. You never know. Or if you're in a hot seat, you're in the main character, you're driving all the time. So, but if you're 3-4 cars back, maybe some car chase scene, maybe they don't need you for first half day or something. So it's all random, and you just have to be open to changes consistently.
And do you charge like a day rate, and then if it goes over time, like do you charge extra? Like how does that kind of work?
Yeah, it's all through SAG, Screen Actors Guild. So there are contracts pre-written with the payment of it's either on a daily or on a weekly contract, and the pay is different. And after a certain amount of hours each day, after 8 hours on a commercial day, you go into overtime and such.
Cool. Yeah, so basically it's just getting an overview of what you do and like your career, and I could keep asking you 100 questions, but I don't want to take up too much of your time. But is there anything else you want to talk about or discuss?
No, I mean, I'm going into vacation mode now. We always leave for Sweden in the summer, so go back to our family back then there, and getting the kids to meet up their cousins and such, and all our grandparents and things. So we're just enjoying a beautiful summer here now. Kids are staying busy with the summer camps here, tennis, basketball, cooking, and all kinds of fun stuff. And finally, we got some sun here in Southern California, because it's been overcast and rainy for a long time, and starting to break up early now. So we are out of the May gray and June gloom. So that's great. Not just thankful for still being able to make a living driving cars. It's 33 years now I've been paid. So I'm just blessed, thankful for the blessings of God, of giving me the skills and enough skills to stay in this very competitive business. It's a tough business to stay in, but just have to do the best you can every day, and keep hoping for more work. And then next phone call hopefully comes. That's how it is.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us, Samuel, and I'll let you get back to it.
Thanks, Rory.